God reveals, my beloved child, are you ready? Your miraculous role in his divine plan awaits. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, King Xerxes ruled over the vast empire stretching from India to Cush. The riches of Susa, the capital, flourished under his reign, the palace adorned with royal tapestries and the air thick with fragrant spices. It was in this land of opulence and splendor that Esther, a young Jewish woman, found herself unexpectedly seated upon a throne, her heart heavy with the fate of her people. Esther was an orphan, raised by her cousin Mordecai, who nurtured her with the deep traditions and faith of their heritage Yahweh, their God, whose promises illuminated the dark paths of suffering. In the extravagant feasts and the praises echoing through Susa, Esther hid the mantle of her identity from all but herself. Still, even in her regal splendor, the ominous shadow of Haman loomed large, a villain whose malice sought to snuff out the very existence of her kin. Would her heart's whispers, echoing with daunting questions, drown in this sea of comfort? One day, the news was brought to Esther that her cousin had come to the gates of the palace, clothed in sackcloth and ashes, a stark contrast to the finery of the court. Mordecai's heart clenched with despair as he conveyed the terrible edict from Haman, a decree that called for the annihilation of the Jews. In a hushed urgency, he conveyed his message to her: do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Esther felt the weight of his words like a heavy shroud. It rattled the foundation of her heart. Could it be that God had placed her in the palace for a divine purpose? The thought flickered in her spirit, igniting a fire that had long lain dormant. Yet with that spark came the chilling dread of what it would mean to step forward. Approaching her husband, the king, unbidden, was fraught with peril, a summons that could cost her life. Determined, Esther convened her maidens and proclaimed a fast, pledging 3 days of prayer and supplication before the Almighty. We shall beseech Yahweh for clarity and courage, she declared, her voice resonating with newfound resolve. As they prayed, a divine stillness enveloped the palace, thick with the tension of expectation. Each heartfelt prayer was a thread, weaving her purpose tighter into the fabric of God's covenant faithfulness. That on the 3rd day, with her heart racing like a dove taking flight, Esther donned her royal robes. She ascended the throne room's steps, her breath caught in her throat, where the weight of her decision pressed heavily upon her. There, the throne loomed large, a reminder of both her power and vulnerability. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. The moment was here, and Esther stepped forward into the unknown. Would her courage reach the heart of the king? Would he listen to the whispered cries of her people? She raised her eyes to his, and time seemed to still. The weight of history, destiny, and divine providence hung in the balance, waiting for her voice to rise above the clamor of fear. Esther's heart beat like the drums of war, each thud echoing the cries of her people. As she drew closer, the golden brilliance of the king's throne seemed to radiate with both authority and peril. She took a deep breath as the king's gaze fell upon her, his expression unreadable, a mix of surprise and apprehension. "Queen Esther," he intoned, his voice a deep current that seemed to ripple through the air. "What is your request?" "It shall be given to you, even to half of my kingdom." A flicker of hope ignited within her soul, yet fear lingered like a shadow. How could she articulate the vital truth, the life and death urgency that lay buried in the depths of her heart? Remembering the fast, she steadied her voice and replied, "If it please the king, let my request be known at a banquet that I shall prepare for you and Haman. Then, I will answer your question." A curious glimmer danced in Xerxes' eyes. "Very well, come, summon Haman to the banquet," he commanded, the tide of fate shifting in Esther's favor. With swiftness, the servants scurried to wield the royal decree that as the banquet unfolded in sumptuous opulence, with fragrant meat and sweet wines flowing, attention lingered like a fine mist. Haman, adorned in his finest garments, swelled with pride at his elevation. Little did he know that the very woman he sought to murder sat beside the king, her heart a battlefield of conflict. Drink and feast, Haman, Esther encouraged, her voice laced with a grace that belied her resolve. Later in the evening, as laughter filled the hall, she turned her gaze to Xerxes and summoned all the courage she could muster. "King Xerxes," she began softly, her voice trembling yet firm. "If I have found favor in your sight, grant me my life and the life of my people. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. If we had been sold merely as slaves, I would have held my tongue, for our affliction is not to be compared with the loss to the king." The atmosphere shifted, a thick silence falling over the hall as the weight of her words sunk in. The king's brow furrowed with disbelief and rage. Who is he, and where is he, who has dared to do this? His eyes blazed with indignation, his royal authority demanding justice. "It is an adversary and an enemy, this wicked Haman," she replied, pointing an accusing finger, her voice steady, yet her heart thrummed with anticipation. Haman's face drained of color as realization struck him like a thunderbolt. The hand of the Almighty seemed to move in that instant, reversing positions and turning the tide against him. As the king's wrath boiled over, he stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his goblet. "This is treachery!" he bellowed, and in a tumult of emotion, he turned away to gather his thoughts, leaving Haman trembling in his seat, shackled by fear and guilt. The gallows Haman had constructed for Mordecai, the Jew, now echoed in the king's mind. Would the divine justice be meted out soon? In that moment, Esther's heart gave way to a haunting certainty. The battle was only propelling forward, a clash between darkness and light intertwined with the larger tapestry of God's sovereign plan. What would be revealed next in this unfolding drama of redemption? For truly, when mankind schemes, God's purposes reign supreme, orchestrating the intricate ballet of hope and deliverance for those who trust in Him. The outcome was still veiled. Esther's act was but the first step in a grand cosmic finale. The tumult in the hall had only just begun to settle when King Xerxes turned to face Haman, his countenance a stormy sea of anger and confusion. "What depths of wickedness have you sunk to, that you would devise destruction upon the queen and her kin?" he roared, his voice echoing with righteous fury. Haman's lips quivered, and his knees weakened as he fell before the king. "Your Majesty, I beseech you, spare my life," he cried. "I was misled, taken in by the promise of power, and foolishly plotted against the Jews. I did not know that the queen was one of them." The weight of his impending doom bore down upon him, yet the darkness of his heart still sought a way to escape judgment. Esther remained poised but resolute, the tension of the moment gripping her tightly. With a deep breath, she spoke again, her voice a beacon of truth amid the chaos. "My lord, though this man stands before you in treachery, I implore you to consider the fate of my people. They are innocent, and despite the plots against them, we are but faithful servants of the Most High God." Her eyes shone with the light of conviction as she proclaimed, "It is He who has brought me to this very moment for such a time as this." Esther 4 verse 14, the king's mind wrestled with the enormity of the situation. Deep contemplation settled like fog over him. "Esther, how shall justice be meted out for this traitor?" he inquired, his voice steadier now. "Let the very instruments he prepared for our destruction become his own demise," Esther declared. Her spirit drew forth courage from the depths of years spent in prayer. "Let the gallows he built for my uncle Mordecai become his burial place." As the words resonated through the hall, the king nodded gravely. "Let it be done," he proclaimed, commanding the guards to take Haman into custody. The irony of it all sent ripples of tension through the attendees. The sinister plot of Haman was unraveling before their very eyes, and the providence of the Almighty was shining through the darkened clouds. And so it was that Haman, galling in his own deceit and arrogance, was led away, his fate sealed. Yet even in the aftermath, Esther felt a heavy burden. Though a victory had been won, war was yet upon her people. The decree against the Jews still lingered, a specter over the land. The king, contemplating the unfolding events, summoned his scribes. "Write once more in the king's name, and seal it with my signet ring to counter the first decree. Provide a means of defense for the Jews. Let them stand against their enemies on the 13th day of Adar." As the edict was drafted, Esther took a moment to reflect, her heart brimming with gratitude yet heavy with responsibility. She had stood before the king, risking her life, yet she wondered, what more could God have planned? In the stillness of her thoughts, a whisper of divine revelation enveloped her spirit. God was on the move. His purposes extended far beyond her comprehension, weaving together the lives of her people in a tapestry of hope. This battle was part of a greater story, one that reached into the ancient past and extended into the future. "Dear God," she breathed in prayer, "lead us through this valley. May our trust in you be unwavering as your plans unfold." As the days passed, anticipation hung like a sacred cloud over the kingdom. Would the ground shake with the force of divine intervention? What miracles were yet to come, and how would God's hand move among his people when they needed it most? In this moment of prayer, Esther understood a profound revelation. God was readying them for a divine appointment. His sovereign plan was unfolding, and each heartbeat echoed the promise of deliverance. The future lay veiled yet pulsating with the glory of his purpose, urging them toward the climax of his narrative. For in the shadows of despair, his light would shine most brightly. From this very scene forward, could the true intentions of a mighty deliverer be waiting to be revealed? As the sun dawned over the kingdom, a sense of solemnity settled in the hearts of the people. The news of Haman's arrest and the king's new edict pulsed through the city like a heartbeat, igniting a flicker of hope amidst despair. Esther, draped in her queenly robes, ascended to the palace's great hall, her heart a mixture of anxiety and resolve. She knew the battle was not yet won, the day of reckoning loomed just beyond the horizon. "What shall I do, O Lord?" She prayed earnestly, her gaze cast upward as if seeking divine clarity from the heavens. In the hush of that sacred moment, she felt a stirring within her heart, a reminder of the trust her forefathers had placed in God. She recalled the stories of Daniel in the lion's den, of Moses leading the Israelites through the Red Sea, and of David confronting Goliath. Surely, her God was the same, unchanging and faithful to those who seek him with all their hearts. Word spread swiftly of the new decree granting the Jews the right to defend themselves. The streets echoed with whispers, some laced with fear, while others brimmed with anticipation. "Will it be enough?" they murmured amongst themselves. "Who are we against such great forces?" Yet within Esther arose a resolute faith, a promise that echoed from the annals of her people's history. She gathered the Jewish leaders in a council, her firm yet gentle words commanding attention. "We are not alone. The God of our ancestors goes before us, and his strength is our shield." That evening, as twilight cast a comforting veil over the kingdom, she gathered her closest confidants. Mordecai, her uncle, stood beside her, and the resolve of their hearts intertwined despite the looming shadow of uncertainty. "Dear Esther," he reassured her, "do not lose heart. The Lord has orchestrated this moment for a reason." Esther nodded, quelling the flutter of doubt within. "We must prepare ourselves, both in heart and in spirit. Let us fast and pray for 3 days, seeking the Lord's favor as we ready ourselves for battle. He will guide our steps." And so it was that a sacred fast commenced, the people of God turning their faces towards the Lord, praying for divine intervention. They sought wisdom, they sought strength, and above all, they sought favor. Morning turned into night, and the whispers of prayer rose like incense before the throne of grace. As the 13th day of Adar approached, the people's hearts beat in unison, and a swelling courage filled their souls. The anticipated day of confrontation mixed with a sense of destiny. Would God move as he had done with their ancestors? A divine expectancy rippled through the Jewish people, a stirring from the deep that attested to his promise of deliverance. In the palace, the atmosphere shifted as well. King Xerxes, restless with anticipation, walked the halls alone, pondering the events that had transpired and the looming fate of his queen's kin. Unbeknownst to him, God was yoking the hearts of men to fulfill his great purposes, and at that moment, a thought gripped the king's heart, as he remembered the noble deeds of Mordecai, the very man who had saved his life from assassination. What honor has been bestowed upon him? He pondered aloud, seeking to uncover the layers of fate woven intricately by the divine. As the clock ticked toward the fateful day, Esther sensed that a pivotal moment was near. God's hand was preparing the hearts of the king, the enemies, and her own people. She felt the weight of what lay ahead but also the unmistakable promise of hope. What would the outcome be in the grand tapestry of his sovereign will? The heavens, too, seemed to wait with bated breath, as if all of creation stood poised on the edge of anticipation. For this chapter of the story was unfolding not just for Esther and her people, but for generations to come. Mightier than all kings and tyrants, God's plans were in motion, and within them lay the fulfillment of something far greater than they could ever imagine. And so, dear reader, the question loomed: what miraculous resolution awaited at the climax of this divine narrative? The time for God's promise and purpose was drawing near, and He alone knew the beginning from the end. Would His people seize the moment, trusting in His unfailing plan? As dawn broke on the 13th day of Adar, the light of a new day shone down upon the city with an intensity that echoed the hearts of the Jewish people. Esther, adorned in royal garments, stood at the threshold of her chamber, the weight of the nation's hopes resting heavily upon her shoulders. She could feel the fervent prayers of her people reverberating in her very being, a symphony of faith rising to the heavens. "Lord," she whispered, clutching her heart, "guide me in this hour. I stand here as your instrument. Let not my fears overshadow your will." With a deep breath, she stepped into the palace courtyard, her eyes scanning the skies for divine confirmation. It was then that Mordecai approached, his face a stoic mask of determination. "Esther," he began, voice steady yet urgent, "this is the day our fate be decided. Remember, it may very well be for such a time as this that you have come to the kingdom." A wave of conviction flooded her heart at the words of her uncle, drawing from the well of her faith. "If I perish, she resolved, embodying the courage of her ancestors, those who had faced trials yet stood unyielding in their trust in God. As she approached the king, her pulse quickened, a holy dread coursing through her. Meanwhile, within the inner chambers, King Xerxes sat upon his throne, his expression pensive as he awaited the appearance of his queen. The sound of sandals upon marble caught his attention, and as Esther entered, a hush fell over the assembly. Her beauty was evident, yet it was her regal resolve that captured the king's gaze more deeply. "Esther," he called, extending his scepter, "what is your request?" "It shall be given to you, even up to half my kingdom." In that moment, the weight of her mission surged through her. "If it pleases you, O king," she began, her voice unwavering, "let me invite you and Haman to a banquet that I have prepared. There, I shall reveal the truth that lies hidden, and my heart's desire." The king's interest was piqued. "Very well," he responded, a flicker of intrigue lighting his eyes. Meanwhile, Haman, basking in the king's favor, strode proudly to the banquet, unaware of the peril that awaited him. High was his heart as he considered the accolades bestowed upon him. His delight was short-lived, for in the shadows of fellowship, a plot was being unveiled greater than his own ambitions. At the banquet table, as the feasting began, Esther observed her surroundings with a heart both anxious and expectant. She felt the stirrings of the spirit urging her toward a pivotal moment. "I must speak," she whispered with inner resolve, "for the time has come to expose the wickedness hidden among us." Days turned to night as the banquet graced the halls of the palace, yet the hour of revelation lingered. Esther, filled with the weight of prayer, offered a second course to the king, her voice steady though her hands trembled with divine urgency. "O king, if I have found favor in your sight," she implored, "let my life be granted to me, and my people's as well. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed. This calamity is at the hands of a man whose heart is full of malice." A silence enveloped the room, a moment of breathless anticipation as the air thickened with understanding. King Xerxes, fury igniting within him, demanded of Haman, "Who is he, and where is he, who has dared to do such a thing?" In that sacred moment, the truth unfurled before them, unveiling the depths of God's sovereign plan and the unfolding destiny of His chosen people. The question reverberated in ancient halls and modern hearts alike: what deliverance would the Lord unveil, as the story of Esther drew nearer to its divine crescendo. The people of God sensed that a miraculous intervention was upon them, and the time for his covenant promise was drawing ever closer. As the king's question pierced the hushed air, a tremor of fear slid through Haman, his heart racing as he realized the gravity of what lay before him. The same scepter that promised life was now poised against him, poised to clamp down on the wickedness he had sowed. The adversary is I, Haman stammered, dread consuming his pride as he met the furious eyes of Xerxes. The weight of his treachery grew heavy, chains of guilt binding him even as they threatened to shatter his life. Esther's heart quickened as she witnessed the king's wrath, and yet in that moment, she felt emboldened, empowered by the God who orchestrated her steps. "O king," she intoned, her voice unwavering, "this man, Haman, hath sought the destruction of my people, whose cry has ascended to heaven. He sought my annihilation, and the annihilation of those who dwell in your land." King Xerxes' brow furrowed in rage, his countenance shifting as though a storm brewed within him. In a swift motion, he rose, his command echoing like thunder. "Let him be hanged upon the gallows he prepared for Mordecai, the very man whose loyalty saved my own life." A clean shudder ran through the assembly, such divine justice seemed fraught with fury and grace entwined. A decree of deliverance and retribution was wrought in a single proclamation, and a ripple of hope surged among the waiting Jewish souls scattered throughout the kingdom. Esther could scarcely believe the quick turn of events set in motion by God's mighty hand. "Let the gallows be witnessed," she announced, emboldened by the Spirit, "let it be known to all that the hand of the Almighty prevails against the wicked." Meanwhile, a thread of tension wove through the palace corridors as the guards swiftly apprehended Haman, dragging him from the banquet with fury igniting their anger at his treachery. Mordecai stood at the gates of the palace, having mourned with ashes and fasting, but now he stood tailored in garments of hope, ready to witness the Lord's deliverance. The news swept swiftly to every corner of the city, rippling like a quaking earth beneath the feet of the Hebrew people. Faith surged in their hearts, as they felt the hand of providence upon them once again. As Haman was led away, the king faced Esther anew, a new light breaking across his expression. "What shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honor?" Xerxes asked, unknowing of a plot turned against his most trusted adviser. "I shall speak of Mordecai, dear king," Esther replied, "he who revealed to you the plot against your life and saved your reign. Let a royal robe be placed upon him, and let the king's horse bear him through the streets." Xerxes fully acquiesced, and this commission turned the tides further still. The gallows once destined for the righteous now served as a proclamation of God's justice and favor, the crescendo of his orchestration echoing beautifully through the city. As the dust settled and jubilations arose among the people, they began to understand that their cries had been heard. Life would flourish anew, inspired by the faithfulness of Esther and Mordecai, and yet, as the banners of joy fluttered, the spiritual realm stirred. What other mysteries did the Almighty hold? Could one woman's courage and one man's faithfulness be the harbinger to fulfill the promises made long ago to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? An even grander deliverance loomed. Could this be but the beginning? Esther pondered inwardly, a question draped in anticipation. God's sovereign plan was unfolding, and in its wake, he would reveal even greater wonders. The unfolding of the scrolls of fate had only just begun. As the royal command resonated through the palace like the clarion call of a great trumpet, the hearts of the faithful trembled with wonder. Mordecai was summoned, and he approached the king's gate, his spirit ignited with a flame of hope. In the shade of his former mourning, he now stood, clothed not merely in royal robes, but arrayed in the divine assurance of God's covenant. "Let Mordecai come," Xerxes proclaimed, as the hall buzzed with the excitement of the unfolding revelation. Upon entering, Mordecai beheld the king seated upon his throne, crowned in regal authority, and beside him, the steadfast Esther, her eyes glimmering with the light of God's favor. The atmosphere thickened with the promise of salvation fulfilled. "Mordecai," the king called, "this day, ye shall ride upon the king's horse, adorned in magnificence. All shall see and know of your deeds, for you have saved the king's life." With fame and glory being bestowed, Mordecai's heart teetered between humility and exaltation, for he understood that the honor was not for himself alone, but for the God who preserved his people. He bowed deeply, acknowledging the sovereign who orchestrated the events of this day. "Praise the Lord!" he exclaimed. "For it is his hand that has wrought this deliverance. May his glory be known forevermore." Thus they adorned him a purple robe signifying royalty, a gold crown placed upon his head that shimmered like the stars in the heavens, and the king's signet ring gleaming with authority. The decree was issued, and the herald cried aloud through the streets, "Thus shall be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." With every hoofbeat echoing in the approaching dusk, Mordecai rode forth, leading the way with the soldiers of the realm in eager display. Crowds gathered, their voices joining in an awe-filled chorus. "Blessed be Mordecai! Blessed be the God who protects his children!" Joy cascaded through the hearts of the Jewish people, flooding the streets as they witnessed the powerful hand of God revealing his plan for redemption. Each cry was a testimony, a memory rehearsed, a promise remembered, yet, as Mordecai processed through the throngs of his people, he paused for a moment, sensing the weight of the mantle upon him. He looked not only at the blessings in this moment but into the lingering shadows of what might still lie ahead. With a heart destined for sacrificial purpose, he prayed silently for strength to fulfill the call of God that was yet unfolding. Meanwhile, in the shadows, unseen yet not unheeded, the adversary lay in ruin. Haman's final hour approached, the gallows awaited, as did the judgment of the Almighty. His scheme lay in tatters, unraveling before his very eyes. The tension of divine justice gripped the air, igniting even the earth below. For as justice reigned, mercy too lingered, wondering what greater mercy might yet be unveiled. Esther, beholding the spectacle, felt the weight of providential purpose beating within her. The moment was ripe for the unraveling of a far greater mystery, a deliverance that, though initiated with the downfall of Haman, pointed to the restoration of a nation. "O King," she ventured, emboldened by the Spirit. "Let the Hebrew people be gathered in unity, for their hearts are full of praise. Let us reclaim our lands and our legacy, for a promise has been whispered through the ages, awaiting its consummation." As words left her lips, the fabric of time unfolded, weaving together the destiny of nations, aligning the stars to reveal the magnificence of God's unwavering plan. What lay beyond the horizon of this day? Could the echoes of Esther's courage and Mordecai's faith spark a chain of events that would lead to a promise not just for their people, but for the whole world? The stage was set, the heavens watched in silence as God's sovereign will began its wondrous declaration, leaving the people yearning for the ultimate fulfillment of his divine purpose. And it came to pass that, as the sun descended beyond the horizon, casting a golden hue over the land, the murmurs of the people grew fervent. The shouts of celebration filled the air, a sweet sound echoed by their exuberant hearts. In those moments of exaltation, Esther stood against the backdrop of the royal court, sensing a shivering anticipation, a divine heartbeat within her soul. "Brave people of Israel," she declared, her voice steady yet tender, "this day marks not the end but the beginning. God has turned our mourning into joy, our sorrow into a song. Praise be to the Lord of hosts, for he has fought our battles." Unified in spirit, the Jewish people proclaimed, "Blessed be he who reigns forever. Blessed is the deliverance this day." Mordecai, his heart sparked with the flame of victory, dismounted from the king's steed. He turned towards the assembly and addressed them with the conviction of one chosen for such a time as this. "Remember, beloved brethren, that our deliverance is of the Lord. It is he who has raised us from despair, not merely to survive, but to thrive and shine forth as a light among the nations." His voice bore the weight of prophecy, and the crowd responded with a wave of faith, their voices lifting like incense unto heaven. Yet in that moment of triumph, a shadow loomed in the periphery of their celebrations. Haman's fate was not merely a swift end, it was a testimony of the Almighty's justice, a stark reminder of the ever-watchful eye of God. As dusk deepened, Esther beckoned Mordecai and whispered, "There are matters yet undone. While the dawn brings joy, I sense the enemy's remnants still plot in darkness. Wisdom is needed if we are to ensure our people's safety." With grave hearts, they retreated to seek counsel from the Lord, falling down upon their knees in a posture of surrender. "God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, heed our cries," Esther prayed, her voice quivering with earnestness. Lead us in the way we should go, show us the path to restoration and peace for our people. And it was then that a vision formed, clearer than the morning sky, a tapestry of events woven together, threads of redemption and hope. The Lord revealed to Esther that their victory was only unfolding, and the hearts of enemies yet remained unturned. Mordecai, she declared in fervor, there are those among the nations who will rise with malice against us. We must prepare to stand strong and wield the truth as our shield. With renewed resolve, Mordecai agreed, let us send word throughout the kingdom. We must remind our people of God's covenant and gather strength from one another. For we are not merely a people marked for destruction, but a people destined for glory. Thus, letters were penned, dispatched throughout the expanse of the realm, calling on the Jewish people to unite in prayer and preparation for what lay ahead. Each missive stirred faith, rekindled hope, reminding the children of Israel of their identity and covenant with the Almighty. As the stars blinked above, signs of God's faithfulness illuminating the night, Haman's twisted heart began its descent into fury and desperation. For horror and dismay awaited him, and he stewed in the realization that God's decree could not be thwarted, yet, even amid the chaos, a deeper mystery loomed. What greater revelation of divine mercy would soon unravel? What role would Esther, Mordecai, and their people play as the final promise approached? The air was thick with suspense, and the weight of destiny pressed down, inviting all to ponder the ultimate expression of God's unwavering will was still to come, drawing closer with each passing breath. And it came to pass that the dawn broke with a brilliance unmatched, as if the heavens themselves heralded a new day of reckoning. Esther stood once more before the vastness of her kingdom, her heart beating in rhythm with the very pulse of the divine will. The cries for help had spread like wildfire, igniting despair and courage alike within the hearts of the Jewish people. Mordecai, she called, her voice resolute, the time is at hand. Our people must gather not only to pray, but to rise in strength and purpose. The enemy has not ceased in his efforts to devour us, yet our God is greater. Mordecai, his countenance reflecting the gravity of the moment, replied, indeed, my queen. Let us assemble the leaders of Israel and form a council of prayer and planning. We know that the Lord has called us to stand firm, for as the prophet Isaiah spoke, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, Isaiah 54 verse 17. Thus, they called forth the elders of the tribes, the representatives of the scattered house of Jacob, gathering them in the courtyard adorned with the banners of their ancestors. The assembly was filled with solemnity, each face reflecting a share of concern, but also a flicker of hope nourished by faith. As the people sat together, Esther rose, her voice elevated like a trumpet before them. Hear me, children of Israel. Our God has not abandoned us in our time of need. He who delivered our forefathers from the hands of Pharaoh will deliver us again. Each of you must know the gravity of our situation. We are to implore the Lord and move as one body in His name. And the people responded with fervent prayers, lifting their voices in harmony to the Almighty, seeking His mercy and guidance. As their prayers soared, suddenly an unsettling stillness enveloped the gathering, akin to the moment before a storm's fury. It was then that the air shimmered, and a prophetess arose from among the assembly, her eyes aflame with divine insight. Behold, she declared, the Lord has revealed a great and terrible truth. The enemy may carry venom in his heart, but the Lord has placed a new decree upon the earth. The chains of our oppressor shall now turn to chains of salvation. The venue echoed with shouts of praise, yet Esther and Mordecai exchanged wary glances, for the words held both promise and a warning. Unseen powers began to stir as they sensed the tension of impending confrontation. Let us not grow complacent, Mordecai cautioned, for disturbances among the nations are nigh. We must equip ourselves as warriors of the light, for the glory of the Lord will rise upon you, Isaiah 60 verse 1. We shall confront the darkness. Days passed as the people prepared, fasting and praying, their spirits kindling like a furnace. With each passing hour, whispers of their unity reached even the heights of the royal court. Yet within that same court, shadows lingered in corners, filled with those who would not let go of their hatred or pride. Now, in the heart of the city, word reached them that the gallows Haman had erected stood as a monument to his malevolence. The very device he had created to execute his dark plot now became a harbinger of justice, awaiting the moment of divine reckoning. As Esther contemplated the fate of her people and the unfolding manifestation of God's plan, she sensed the weight of her own destiny stirring within her. She had been set in that position not merely for her beauty, but to intercede for her people at this pivotal hour. What shall come of me if I approach the king uninvited? She pondered, torn between fear and faith. Yet, her heart whispered, what if this is precisely the moment for which I was born? What if my life, my very breath, is woven into the tapestry of divine deliverance? And with this growing realization, the air thickened with expectation. The irrevocable moment was nearing, one that would either seal their fates or proclaim liberation. The final threads of God's masterpiece yet to be unveiled hung delicately in the balance. Would Esther step forward, risking her life for the salvation of her people? God's sovereign hand, unseen yet powerful, gripped the outcomes tightly, signaling that his plan was about to unfold in ways unimaginable, for the time was drawing nearer when God's promise would not just be understood, but embodied in a miraculous act of deliverance, unveiling the victory that awaited his faithful remnant. In the days that followed the decree of deliverance, a profound transformation swept through the land. The Jewish people, once cloaked in despair, now adorned themselves with garments of hope and joy, their spirits ignited by the assurance that the God of their ancestors had intervened. The 13th day of Adar heralded not only the anticipated confrontation but also a divine orchestration that would seal their fate and fulfill God's promises. As dawn broke, Esther stood at the palace window, her heart aligned with the pulse of her people. The prayers of the faithful intermingled with the morning breeze, rising like incense before Yahweh's throne. She recalled the courage that had blossomed within her, fueled by the knowledge that God had chosen her for such a time as this. My Lord, she prayed silently, you have called me to lead, grant me wisdom and strength. May your deliverance be evident among us today. When she entered the courtyard, a vibrant throng awaited her, eager for the day's unfolding miracle. With a commanding yet gentle voice, she addressed the assembly gathered around her, today, we stand united as one people under the mighty hand of God. He has wrought a wondrous deliverance, turning despair into hope and sorrow into redemption. As her words echoed through the air, a resounding cheer erupted from the crowd, a chorus proclaiming their faith. Blessed be our God. Blessed be the hand that delivers. Meanwhile, Haman's fate hung heavily in the balance, a reckoning swift and certain. The very gallows he had erected for Mordecai now loomed over him as a chilling reminder of divine justice. Confined in chains, Haman trembled before the king, his once gleaming ambition now reduced to ash. The fury of Xerxes had been unleashed, and the righteousness of God had prevailed. Let it be known, the king decreed, the words booming across the assembly. Let justice be served, for Haman's treachery shall not go unpunished. With these declarations, the gallows became a testament to the Almighty's sovereignty. Even in the darkest of plots, God turned the hearts of kings, revealing the ultimate triumph of good over evil. While Haman met his demise, Mordecai's rise to honor crafted an uplifting tapestry that stirred the hearts of many. Clothed in royal garments, he stepped forward, embracing the hand of the Almighty upon him. With Esther at his side, he proclaimed, this day is not simply a victory but a testimony to the unwavering faithfulness of Yahweh. He has bestowed favor upon us, that we might shine forth his light in the world. As the news of their deliverance swept through the city, the Jewish people swelled with exhilaration. They rejoiced at the mighty hand of God, uniting their hearts to commemorate the feast of Purim, a sacred remembrance of their salvation. Each household lit candles of joy, anointed by prayers of gratitude, marking the day when darkness had been vanquished and life renewed. And from this day forward, Esther declared, let it be written in the annals of history that we are an enduring people, called to bear witness to the greatness of our God. For every battle he fights on our behalf, every act of mercy that flows from his heart. In the spirit of unity, Mordecai and Esther also sent letters throughout the provinces, urging all to engage in rejoicing and remembrance. Let us never forget the day that our Lord intervened, for his sight is upon us always, and his salvation shall echo through generations. Thus, the memory of the deliverance accomplished through Esther's bravery, and filled with the ardor of faith, was enshrined in the hearts of the Jewish nation. The legacy of their deliverance echoed across the ages, a beacon of hope that would inspire confidence in the faith of many, and so it came to pass that the story of Esther and Mordecai emerged as a testimony, woven in the very fabric of their identity, a reminder that God's sovereign plan unfolds amidst trials, transforming pain into purpose, and despair into celebration. For in the time to come, the covenant of God remains steadfast, leading his people forward in hope. Dear friends, the narrative of Esther reminds us of the profound call upon our lives. God has a miraculous role for each of us within his divine plan. Are you ready to embrace the calling he has placed in your heart? This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with someone who needs to hear God's truth today. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word and not miss the next powerful biblical stories that have the capacity to transform lives. That if this message resonates with you, leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm. Comment below your spiritual reflections and how this biblical story has impacted your faith. Let us unite and share these miraculous stories to reach more souls, for Christ's shared hope provides light in darkness.